So for our second segment, we are going to discuss one of David's favorite movies, which recently underwent a remake. It would be Suspiria. Suspiria from 1977, and the remake Suspiria from 2018, correct?
Yes, sir. And let me make a prediction, and you don't have to answer this right now. I prefer you not to.
Okay.
But I'm going to predict you enjoyed the remake more than the original.
Well, I'm not going to answer right now.
And the reason I say that is because of my conversation with film fans, certain film fans under a certain age, who don't have as much, who might not be like the biggest horror nerds, they prefer the remake. So
Okay.
So yeah, we'll start. Suspiria is a film made in 1977 by the legendary Dario Argento.
Dario.
And co-written by his longtime partner, Daria Nicolodi. I pronounce her name wrong all the time. But this is a monumental horror film which revolves around a dance studio ran by a witch coven. So I'm actually more interested to hear, because was this your first viewing?
This was my first viewing of Suspiria. I've tried to watch it a long time ago because I looked for lists of just some old classics that I've been missing out on when it came to horror. And before we even started talking about doing this podcast, I've seen at least the first 20 minutes, and I just never managed to get through it. I'm not going to say I fell asleep, but something would come about, and I just know. Just the old timiness of the film work and just the camera work and everything. I just wasn't feeling it at the time, and I stopped it. And when I had to revisit it for in preparation for this segment, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this before, but I didn't see it all the way through. So I remembered a lot of the beginning part with Susie Benner or Susie Banner. Susie O'Banion. Yeah, what is in the new one? I think they say Susie Banner or something.
No, it's the same name.
Is it?
Yeah.
Susie Banner. Anyway, the way they say it. And actually, by mistake, I have always had the Italian copy of it, and I thought the original was in Italian. And for some reason, I don't know. And I watched it closely this time, and I'm like, it really looks like their mouths are moving in English. And then I was looking it up, and I finally acquired a copy in English, and I was like, oh, what the hell have I been watching? Like this, because I was I had the Italian dub, so I was looking for the English subs. And then there was, in the new one, there was French and German parts. I was like, oh, the subs didn't have that. So I was looking, I had to find all these little subtitle files and stuff to make everything work. But anyway, long story short, I found out that it was in English.
Yeah, during this era of Italian filmmaking, the Italians do they produce films differently than what Americans are used to. They do almost all of the dialogue in post-production. So when they're actually filming the scenes, the audio from the actual scene is never used. So everything is voiceover. So this was originally done in English. So a lot of the cast didn't know English very well.
No.
But that didn't really matter because they do all the sounds in post-production.
Yeah.
So it gives it almost a weird type feeling because you can kind of tell that the sound isn't coming from that scene being shot.
Right.
But if you watch Italian films of that era, that's something that is pretty much across the board on Italian films. Even if you look at the Clint Eastwood films like Fistful of Dollars and stuff like that, directed by Sergio Leone, you can tell that all that sound is done in post-production.
Oh, can you hear my cat?
I wasn't sure if it was mine or yours.
Well, we'll just pretend it was yours. I think you just went away. Yeah, no, the dubbing was funny because I haven't seen a movie like that in a while, and like there were there was some stuff in between that was just like what I recall. Which character was it? But towards the end, when the spirit is sort of moving her, and she's just flopping against the wall from one thing to another, and she's just like breaking these glass cabinets. She hits one, then hits another, and she rolls and rolls. And then I think she's the one who falls into the razor wire room.
No, that is Susie falls into the razor wire. She dies.
Wait, then who is the star? Who's the brunette star?
I'm sorry, not Susie. Sarah falls into the razor wire.
Okay.
Susie is the main star.
I didn't remember her name.
Sarah is her closest friend
at
the dance academy.
Yeah. So that's the same as the other one. I didn't catch her name, so I was like, oh, is this a Sarah character, same as from the 2018 one?
Yeah, and Sarah's her closest friend in the remake. But a couple things about this film. First of all is the color palette, which is totally unique. It's just so drenched in primary colors. What Dario Argento was going for was he was a big fan of Snow White, the Disney film.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
So he was going for a fairy tale, but the color schemes he was basing off animation. So that was his full intent, just to make a very weird color, almost supernatural fairy tale. And that's one of the things that I love and most people love about this film is just the color scheme of it.
I felt like because now I'm comparing it, obviously, but if I can pseudo sort of cut out the 2018 version out of my head and then judge that one, the 1977 one independently, the ending did not satisfy me. It felt rushed. I mean, maybe wait, is he alive? If we were to interview him, he could say otherwise, but
yeah, Argento's still around.
I did not like the end. Wait, this is a full spoiler and review anyway, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, she finally gets into the room, and that's the Marcos, and she's invisible. She realizes, and then she stabs, and then that's it. And then like she's just like wandering out of the house as everything explodes. There's even one scene where I think she knows that the doorknob is going to explode, and she's like going to touch it, but she's like waiting for it to react. I think she touches it and then lets go, and then it blows up. Like, oh, okay, just go. And then she's just like, she gets outside, she pushes the door that's fallen out, and she's outside, and then she's just like smiling, and the whole thing is burning. Were the rest of the women at that point evil? I missed something that I thought the other women were fairly innocent in all this.
No, they're all the teachers?
No, not the teachers. The other girls. Weren't they in the building when it was burning up at the end?
They were all gone. They were, yeah. So that's why she starts doing her snooping around, is because she thinks everybody is out of the house. But I guess what a lot of people have not necessarily issue with, but the film starts off like the first few scenes are absolutely amazing, and they're so it really slows down after that. But the first few scenes, the kills are amazing, but then it brings you back to reality almost, and just does this slow build up. So he really catches you off guard with that.
I really liked how it started off, and everything was really like just the right amount of creepiness. And then those kills, like I don't have a problem with like, you know, the like just kind of that olden timey kind of look and stuff. Like I like that. It kind of added to the creepiness for me. And then that woman was like repeatedly stabbed. And I was like, oh, okay, she's dead. Oh, she's really dead. Now she's dead, and she's like keeps getting stabbed. And then that other woman that, the glass falls on, was like, whoa. Like she just had to stand there and just take it in the face with those huge shards of glass. And that was, yeah.
Now, did you notice that when we first see Susie, when she's in the airport,
yeah,
did you notice how the score worked at the beginning of the film?
How it went quiet to present and then quiet to present.
Well, yeah, when the doors opened, you would hear the score.
Yeah.
And when they shut, you didn't. So it was almost like she's entering this nightmare. And that's how the film is. That's how the film is made. It's made to be, and this is a lot in Italian cinema. Not just Argento, but Fulci. Lucio Fulci was the same way. They're more about mood and feeling as opposed to character and plot building. Which a lot of fans of American cinema, if they just go into Italian film willy-nilly, they might not understand exactly what the Italian what their outlook on film is. But this film wasn't made just to be a straightforward narrative. It was made more to be nightmarish, which is why the colors, why the score, which is one of the best scores in the history in cinema, in my opinion. It's why it's like that. It's made to be an audio and visual hallucination almost.
Yeah, I love that music. And you said you made it your ringtone. I was like, oh, I got to remember to listen to that. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really catchy.
Yeah, it's just such an amazing score, and it's done by a band called Goblin, who they scored a few of the films. But that's even that ride. Some of the best shots is when she's in that taxi cab and you see through the woods, just how strikingly beautiful it is. And I don't know what copy that you saw. I've obviously seen this film many times. But my earlier viewings back, especially in VHS days, but even when it came to DVD, is nothing compared to the 4K restoration of the film, which just made everything that much better. It was almost like watching the film again for the first time, because I took the 35 millimeter negatives and totally reprocessed the whole film to get it as close to seeing it in a movie theater as you possibly can with restorations. But it's just it's a beautiful sight to look at. Just the camera work and the color, the score, and that's what Argento was going for. He wasn't really going for you to be satisfied with the ending, if you can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, like I feel like I was expecting much more with that whole build-up, and then the deaths and stuff, and then as the end neared, I was just like, oh my god, there's only like 10 minutes left. Like this is going to be huge, and then it felt like it was just a bit of a letdown. I was like, oh, all right. And then she's all like hunky dory, like when she leaves the burning building, and she's has a smile and like just, oh phew, everything's all over, and then she's just leaving.
That smile I take more as her kind of losing her mind.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'd believe it if there was more of a setup for us to believe that. I don't know. Or if you're trying to say there was like some possession involved, like, oh, something possessed her and now she's gone and she's taking it elsewhere. Like if there was something that alluded to that, then I would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I don't know. I didn't see that.
And we also got taken into consideration that the movie's 42 years old now.
Yeah, 40. Is it 42? 42 this year? It's 2020 now.
70. I mean, depending on when, I'm pretty sure the film wasn't released the first week of January, so it's going into its 43rd year.
43 years. Well, let's get into the 2018 one then. What did you like or not like?
Well, I just start off the conversation. I was not happy when I heard this film was going to be remade, which I guess most of us feel about a film that we hold really dear.
Right.
Is anybody ever happy about a film that they love is being remade? And I don't think. Have you ever had that feeling that you're
I
happy
mean,
about a film
I,
being remade?
I can understand the excitement for it being like if it's a movie that needed better graphics or something, trying to see like, oh, how can we make it better or more appealing? Or now with today's technology, what can we do with it? So it's interesting in that way. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like if it's already your favorite and you think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, nothing could be improved upon, then like no, leave it alone.
And I felt the same way. And we talked about our favorite horror remakes before.
Hmm.
I felt the same way about Maniac, which I really love, which was on my list. And The Evil Dead is one of them too that they knocked it out of the park in a remake. I think now this remake came out very late 2018, so it's only slightly over a year old.
Hmm.
Directed by Luca Guadagnino, which he's not a horror director. He's more of a art house, more drama director.
Hmm.
Um, I was so pleasantly surprised by the remake of this film. I think he did it the best way you can do a remake. He took a film that a lot of people love, and he didn't try to follow in the other director's footsteps. He tried to make the story his own and bring his own unique perspective to it. The film is opposite in color scheme. It's very drab. It's very neutral color. You don't get a lot of the primary colors until the final act.
Mm.
But he built on the mythology of the film. Um, Starring Dakota Johnson, who I think did a brilliant job, but Tilda Swinton, oh my
Oh yeah,
God,
I love Tilda in this.
oh, she I'm willing to say she's probably the most underrated actress in film. Um, did you realize how many parts she played in this film?
I think three actually.
Yeah.
The doctor, I was skeptical. I was skeptical. Oh my God, skeptical. Skeptical?
Yep.
Is that a word? That sounds weird right now. I was skeptical about the doctor in the beginning because I was like, that's definitely makeup, and he definitely doesn't sound like a man. So he sounds really weird, and I was like, oh, is this going to be a big reveal later? Like, oh, he's actually someone's. But it wasn't anything involved with that. But yeah, she was obviously herself, not herself, but she played the one that looked like her. That one, and then she was also the hideous Marcos,
Yes,
the
it was,
self-appointed Suspiria witch,
and
Suspiriorum.
it is said that when she played God, I'm trying to remember the fella's name, the doctor.
Hmm.
What was it? Kemp
Kempler or Kepler, something like that.
Kempler Kemper.
Go with that. Go with it.
Damn Germans. But she actually kept a prosthetic penis on during the whole time of playing the man.
Yeah.
Which and if you look at both films, they are fully 99% female led.
Yeah.
In the original Suspiria, I think if you have Udo Kerr who plays the historian and the other old guy, but if you take those two guys out, and that's kind of a exposition, about the mothers, about because these films are based around the covens, but there alludes to two other covens being out there besides these, and the
Hmm.
original Suspiria is part of a trilogy. Um, but and if those are only male lines in the film. I think maybe the police officer has a line or two in the original Suspiria. And I'm trying to think, in a remake, there's no male speaking roles the whole film.
No, there's two police officers who come to investigate.
Yeah, the one police officer is the only one that speaks, I believe, and he might have 2-3 lines.
The one comes to the door when he comes to investigate, and then they put him in the trance, and they start poking his penis with the thing.
Yeah, I think he might have 3 lines. He asked for blank, and then he asked for Marcos.
Yeah. And then when the Dr. Kepler goes back to the detectives, the other one speaks to him, and he's like, "I remember you when with my missing wife case."
So you might have 10, 15 lines from male actors.
Oh, one more. What the taxi driver? He's like, "What? What? Ash or something." So, I forget what he says. So 3 male actors. Daniel? Does Daniel the butler say anything? The butler guy? Was that the first one?
No, because he couldn't speak.
Oh, since his tooth extraction.
Yes, he couldn't speak the whole film. Yeah, you had the blind guy who said a few lines.
That was the first. Oh, that death was great.
Yeah.
Dog. What was that? That whole scene was so funny. That the blonde-haired lady, I forgot her name already, but she's like, your dog bit Albert, took a chunk out of his arm.
That's blank in the original.
Yeah, that's in the original, the first one, yeah.
Yeah, that's Blanc, and her name. That's who Tilda Swinton's character is based off.
Oh, okay. I kept missing like whose name was who in the first one, and then he's like, never, and then he's like, don't forget, I can hear everything. I'm blind, not deaf. And then he gets attacked by his dog, and that paint blood. I was like, oh gosh.
That's also another Italian touch. They're they like that really, red blood.
Yeah, that red pigment blood.
Yeah, it's a really brighter red than what Americans use. But the actual cinematography of that scene is brilliant.
I was still trying to look at, well, obviously the dog was not real in that scene, but I was just looking like, wait, is the dog real? Like, I was trying to figure out, like, where's the prosthetic, it was interesting. I liked analyzing those scenes with the deaths and stuff, and those are always fun to look at. But with the 2018 one, so they took a whole different route with this. I was going to say, the director, he mentioned that he didn't base it off the original. He based his story on his memory of when he watched it. So
yeah, he actually calls it a cover, almost like in music.
Right.
He said he was covering the original Suspiria.
Yeah. Yeah, but, it was really interesting. I liked how different it was. I'm glad how different it was. And it wasn't just like a scene by scene copy of it, because that would have been just like, okay, then it compared like that. That's boring.
So in this movie, Susie Bannion comes from a Mennonite family.
Yes.
Which people don't know. Mennonites are kind of like Amish light. It's a religion that kind of broke off from the Amish, but they still use electricity and things of that nature. But she's from Ohio.
They don't use electricity.
The Mennonites in real life use electricity.
Those traitors.
But she has always been drawn to dance and been drawn to this particular dance school because she's watched them perform. So she takes off to Germany, which both of these films are set in Germany. This one's set in Berlin, which the other one is, I believe, called Friedberg. So set in Berlin during some time of some civil unrest, which is kind of just a backdrop to the film. It doesn't play a major part in it. But she comes to this dance school, and she kind of realizes quickly, but it's kind of strange. That first death scene. So Susie is
That was so good.
Yeah, they do a dance called Volk, which, as we learn later on, is actually a spell. But so they lose Sarah, which is in both films. Sarah goes to see the doctor, and Sarah already knows it's a witch coven. So Sarah disappears. Sarah is the one who danced the lead in the Volk.
No. Olga.
No. Sarah was the lead, but then Olga was also going to take over after Sarah. But nobody really wanted to dance the lead.
Hold on. Wait. Patricia is played by Chloe Moretz Grace in the beginning. That's in the opening scene. She goes to see the doctor.
Patricia Hagel. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sarah's the best friend.
Sarah's present till the end.
In both films, it's Patricia. In the beginning of Suspiria, Patricia is the one running out the door.
Yes.
Who ends up being killed.
Yeah.
In this film. So it's Patricia Hagel. So sorry, I got the names mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
But so Patricia was dancing the lead. Patricia is now missing.
Right.
So Susie, first day in the class, decides I'm going to step up and try to dance the lead.
Right.
And she is just so naturally gifted that she dances better than these girls who've been in the academy. But as she is dancing this lead for the first time, Olga, right before this, Olga kind of rushes off and calls them all witches and is pissed off because Patricia is missing. They do this, but they do this scene. Olga is lured to another part of the dance academy, and another
walls are all mirrors in this room, this dance room.
So as Susie is dancing, her moves coincide with Olga just being contorted beyond belief.
The director, or somewhere I read, they said that there were no strings, there were no, there was no apparatus used to help her achieve those things, and that she did that all by herself. If that's true, that's freaking amazing.
Yeah, he said very
brutal.
He said very little CGI. And I watched the behind the scenes on that scene. The only CGI is her left arm.
Oh, wow. Because some of those flips onto her like sides and onto her, I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so hard.
You could tell it's CGI because she has like a sleeve on her arm.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, but everything else, she's a contortionist, so she's able to do all that stuff on her own.
Oh, they look brutal.
Oh, and it's just so she doesn't really die.
No, yeah,
but
more like some kind of like coma or some kind of paralysis she's put in.
But I'll call it a movie death, and that is one of the strongest ones I've seen in years.
That was, it was just like, oh my god, when is it gonna end? Just torturing that girl.
Yeah, and it's brutally beautiful the way that they do it, the way that they mix the scenes of the dance, with her just being contorted beyond belief, is just amazing how they tied those two scenes together.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I mean, that was really good.
But so basically, Susie goes on to captivate Madame Blanc, who's played by Tilda Swinton. And she almost takes over like a motherly role. Like, she really likes Susie.
Mm-hmm.
But during this time, they have a vote really early on in the film. Madame Blanc versus Mother Marcos, and who's going to lead the coven. And Madame Blanc loses. It's a very close vote. So Madame Blanc's not very happy about this, and almost half the staff are not happy with Marcos being the lead, because Marcos is saying she is one of the three mothers. These are the most powerful witches on the planet. and a lot of them don't believe that they think she's overstating her power, and she's not really one of the mothers. So there's almost this political rift in the coven, but they make an agreement that they're going to have this vote, and they're basically not going to bitch about it afterwards. But what Marcos is trying to do, and what she tried to do with Patricia, dancing the Vogue will help pretty much resurrect her body, because right now she's just in this body that's cancerous and disgusting. So they never say it outright, but basically the Vogue is they do kind of say it outright. The Vogue is going to allow Mother Marcos's soul to go into this new body.
Right. They said they were going to use her as a vessel.
She's going to be the vessel. But as Blanc as she's getting that motherly feeling towards Susie, it makes her want to go against Mother Marcos even more. So it kind of leads to the climax, which almost like a whole different film.
Like, I was trying to figure out whether she arrives to the end as what is revealed to be her being Mother Superiorum, or if during her time there she becomes possessed by the spirit, or she becomes the new vessel of Mother Superiorum, and then takes over.
So not to jump ahead, we'll go into the climax.
Yeah.
So people understand. So during the climax, they're in pretty much like a basement, I would say.
Yeah. Well, during this whole time, she seems to be like she's being groomed to be the lead, and Sarah is becoming increasingly worried for her. Where initially it seemed like Dakota Fanning, the character. Oh my God, what's her name?
Dakota
Susie
Johnson.
Sorry, who's Dakota Fanning? That's the other girl.
Yeah.
She was talking to Sarah and asking her questions, and Sarah was kind of just blowing it off. She's like, "No, it's fine. You're crazy." And then Sarah starts having conversations with the doctor, and then gets some more suspicions, and she starts becoming worried for how Susie is changing and becoming so comfortable in her role, and how she's okay with these private lessons with Tilda, where she was like taking things from other people, right? Wasn't there a scene where she was asking her to jump higher, and then we noticed that one girl who used to be able to do it, and now all of a sudden now Susie is able to, she's attaining this new ability and stuff like that for the play they're going to perform. So then following the play, there is she's taking on this role in much more seriousness, and there's just this like very solemn position that Susie is taking on in general as her character, and they don't really allude to what is happening, but something is more or less like she just appears to be a different person as the movie goes on.
Yeah, like she gets this huge confidence boost.
Yeah.
But after they dance the Vogue, they end up in this basement where Marcos is. Before this, we only see her hand.
Mm-hmm.
So she's fully revealed in full disgusting form. Mm-hmm. And all the dancers are down there dancing in almost a trance-like state. Their minds are totally taken over.
And 3 of them are around a post.
Yeah.
Sarah, who was previously taken, she didn't appear for the play. And then Chloe Moretz Grace makes a gross comeback during this scene, which she looks terrible. I don't know, she must have been wearing some old woman bodysuit, because my wife, she couldn't resist. She didn't want to see this movie with me, but she was on the couch. She looked up and she's like, "Oh, look, boobies." And I was like, I don't think those are her boobies, because they look really weird. And then I guess Olga was the other one. I don't remember her face, if it was her or not, but it must have been.
Yeah.
But they were like the 3 sacrifices for this thing that they're doing. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is when Marcos basically tells Susie that what the whole plan is. She's going to use her as a vessel and get more life. So Madame Blanc, Tilda Swinton's character, she's not happy about this happening. She doesn't want this ritual to take place, and she's trying to persuade Susie that she should only go through this if she really wants. Marcos doesn't like her insolence, which is not a total insolence, but she doesn't want this shit to go down.
Right.
So she does a chopping motion and almost totally decapitates Madame Blanc. Turns her into like a backwards Pez dispenser.
Yes. That's a good way to describe it. That's funny.
But before this happens, she's telling Marcos there's something wrong here. There's a bad feeling. So right after this, a figure comes from underneath. And it's just this dark figure who ends up being Death. And Marcos is asking, she asks Marcos, who are you? Who do you claim to be? And she says she is Mother Suspiriorum. And she asks Susie, who are you? And Susie says, I am who you claim to be. So Susie admits to being Suspiriorum. Right. And Death just goes around and obliterates everybody. He kills Marcos and obliterates everybody who voted for her.
Right.
And makes everybody's heads explode.
Yeah. Yeah, some it was like bodies exploding, and then other ones just like surprising, like heads were just just sudden explosions off the top.
And it's such a, it's one of those scenes you see and you won't forget it. Yeah. Like you're going to remember that. If somebody says, "Hey, you ever see Suspiria?" and that scene is what's going to come to you. Like just this final climactic scene of heads exploding. But
those two scenes were the best. The Olga contortion scene and this climax scene was just like, oh, that was awesome. It was just great.
But Susie she's now running the show, but she also shows that she's not all about death. She does believe in some kind of leniency and some kind of mercy. So she does let those who have already lost pretty much everything, Olga and Patricia and Sarah, she asks them what do they wish, and they all wish for death. And she gives them a quick, quiet death. And now pretty much Susie is running the whole fucking show.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe towards the end of the movie. I don't think it's immediately after this, but one of the old witches who didn't die goes to Tilda's body, and it's revealed that she didn't die exactly. She just lifts the head back on, and Tilda like does some weird thing with her tongue and her eyes, and is like, oh, she's alive. Like, okay, good luck patching that up, but I don't know why. Like, if she's severed from the back, like the spinal column is separated, I don't know, like the magic of all this. Because the earlier there's a witch who, I'm not sure if they said explicitly why, but she seemed to be having like premonitions or some kind of knowledge about something, and she ends up stabbing herself in the neck.
That's one of my questions about the film, and I've watched this. I've watched it at least 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what was going on with that character.
Did she vote for Blanc or Marcos? Do you remember?
Well, if you remember at the beginning, it's all voices, so we're not really sure.
She's the last one to vote. Remember, there's like Griffith. I think they said Griffith more than a couple times, and then finally they show who Griffith is. I believe that's her, and she's finally just entering the room, and she's all silent, and she says a name, whether it was on or off camera, but I believe they're inferring that it was her to make that last vote, because she didn't really speak the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so she
Well,
said
if you
something.
remember at the very beginning when Susie first gets there,
Mhm.
she's up top on a balcony
Yes.
watching. And when they look up, she just runs away.
I'd like to think that one of her abilities as a witch, maybe she has premonitions, so she knew what was coming and she didn't want to face that death later on.
But you're going to die anyway, so stabbing yourself in the throat. I think I'd rather have my head blown up than stab myself in the throat, but that might just be a...
The wrath of this crazy witch, like, I don't know.
But
I don't know. These are crazy old witches.
It's totally left up for interpretation. And I'm still not 100% sure what that character was there for, if she was even needed at all.
Maybe she felt like, maybe she didn't know exactly who was going to get killed, but she knew like there was going to be some vengeance taken upon them or something, some kind of like foreshadowing that she saw of an event where that was going to happen. So she was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. And so she freaked out.
Well, there's another scene where I think they're practicing a Volk where she's just kind of looking and has like a terrorized look in her eyes.
Mm.
But other than that, she doesn't really have any lines.
Yeah.
But that's one head scratcher to film. How did you feel about the length? That seems to be a lot of people's complaints.
It was a bit long. I gotta say, I didn't care too much for the dance. The dance was boring me. Like I don't know. Like I'm not a huge fan of interpretive dance because I just don't understand all of it. So, and it was very lengthy. I felt like I was really watching a show, like a real show.
I was compelled by the dance. Now, the length of the movie did not bother me. There's a couple things I don't think, because you were saying you're not sure if Susie, if she was possessed or not. My take on it is that Susie was always destined to be there because they show scenes of her as a little girl,
right,
drawing lines to go to Berlin, and so I think she's always destined to be there. But the flashbacks of Susie and her home life before the dance academy, I don't feel that they were 100% needed. This is to counteract people's argument that is too long. The length didn't bother me, but if certain things were cut out, I don't think the film would be hurt if we didn't have the flashbacks to her past.
There were like really only a couple that were necessary. There was a bit longer scenes, like her mother saying that she was her youngest was
smear
her sin.
Society, or
like her sin.
Smear.
Like, oh, okay. So then when I think about that now, okay, maybe she was just born Suspiriorum then, and she just really came to life, like came into fruition when she finally got to the coven and realized.
If you cut those scenes out and left it more ambiguous, I don't think the film would be hurt. If you cut, 20
then it wouldn't be
off
as definitive. Yeah.
Yeah, and if people say it's too long, that would have cut a few minutes off the film. My biggest issue with the film, Tom York did the score, which Tom York is the lead singer for Radiohead. I think the score in most places was amazing. I loved it. The thing that killed me is when he used his voice, because he has such a recognizable voice. I don't like scores that use lyrics anyway, 9 times out of 10. But when they used that in the final scene, I think it was so distracting. I think that was the biggest flaw of the film.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, when they're going around and when death is blowing up everybody's head, he starts singing.
I wish York was actually in Death's costume and singing as he's killing everyone. That would be like awesome, like rock opera while he's singing.
And just the first thing that comes to my head is, this is Radiohead. And I think that if they just would have used the music without the lyrics, I think it would have been great. Also, how they do in the final act, they do these kind of like side shots of the people voting for Marcos as death's going around blowing up their heads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When they first did the vote, it was all voice. You didn't see who was making votes, who was passing votes. I think that if they would have used that tactic during when they were originally making the votes, and then have death going around blowing up heads, I think it would have been a little more thought provoking and not as distracting.
Okay.
Because you'd have to think, why is he only blowing up their heads? And then you have to think back to early in the film, and you'd have to put two and two together instead of having it kind of force fed to you and having that type of camera work being a little distracting.
Yeah, I mean, that happens in some movies too. Yeah, sometimes it's the gift for those that paid attention.
Yeah.
Like to not be spoon-fed. But then it's also like, oh, but if you missed it, then you might not appreciate the scene. So like, we'll just do a quick flashback. It won't be anything. And just throw it in.
But I think that along with the music was kind of distracting, which was probably the ultimate scene of the film.
The story with the doctor and his wife. So that was, I knew she wasn't real, and then she shows up and brings him back to the coven, and then she disappears, and I was like, ugh, that's so fucked up. And then at the end, when she does that for him, she erases his memory of the women who gave him grief in his life.
Yeah.
I was like, but that also makes him who he is. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I feel like that's kind of messed up. Like, I mean, he could have obviously
said no. It's kind of a gift and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, like, I think he had some willpower in it. It wasn't like she was forcing him, but it seemed like he wasn't against it also.
Do you think the doctor, that part of the story, even needed to be there?
Yeah, because I saw him in the first one, and he really was just exposition in the first movie.
Well, it wasn't even the same doctor.
No, but I mean, old wrinkly doctor.
Yeah.
So this time, the old wrinkly doctor took more of a role. / Tilda Swinton had more of a role in this, and it was a bit distracting from the story, to be honest. Like, it was really just like one more victim, one more sort of person to tie into the story, and it didn't really serve a full purpose. I guess
he needed to be there as a witness, but there's really no reason.
Yeah.
That other than them saying that he needed to be there as a witness, that
exactly.
We would even need to understand that they needed a witness for this.
Well, the only other benefit I was thinking was just that maybe just to further show that Mother Suspiriorum was not evil. Like, she was trying to right some wrongs, and she was trying to help too. So she goes to visit him when she didn't need to. I suppose just to wipe his memory of what he saw. But she needed to be there. But then also offer, just like she offered those three, some kind of a gift or a wish for what they had endured. So he was also part of that group. So
did you see they threw a Marvel at us too?
A what?
There's some post-credit scene.
I heard about it after the fact, and then I didn't go back because they were like, it's largely irrelevant. Like, it was just in case they were hinting at a sequel or something.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense. I watched it like 3-4 times, and I couldn't really get much out of it.
Was it just her? I heard it was something like her waving her hands like she was doing some incantation, but it didn't really allude to anything.
Yeah, she's kind of, it's almost like she's looking in a mirror, the way the camera work is, and her hand almost kind of looks a little bit like Death's hand, and that's what I'm trying to make out. And she's just kind of moving her hand about slightly, and that's it.
There's no real information or anything, right?
No. Okay. Yeah.
I might go check that just to see. Like, sometimes I like to look into stuff more that needs to be done. But the wait, what was I saying? the old guy, his necessity. Yeah, not so much.
Well, also, his wife
Yeah, was
was
the
the original
original
actress.
Susie. Yeah, I
So
noticed that.
now a lot of films that are remakes, they kind of throw that bone to an actor or actress to come back in. But this was better done than they're usually done. Because even though I don't feel that it's totally needed, that's one of the best emotional points of the film.
With him searching for his missing
Him
wife.
seeing his wife, yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, it was a huge punch in the gut because when she first shows up, I'm like, you're gonna be totally fucked up about this. and
Yeah.
then he's like, oh, they're walking together, and then he ends up in front of there. I'm like, wait, does he always pass this place going to work or something? And then I was like, oh no. He turns around and then she's gone. I'm like, I knew it.
Yeah.
At the last second, I was like, oh no, it's real, and I tricked myself, and I was like, no. Oh gosh, it's like, oh, that's so terrible. They did that.
But I think they did an amazing job at just showing. They showed a lot of women empowerment in this film.
Mm.
And the fact that it's just almost totally, acted by women, and I Dakota Johnson, I think she is a competent actress, and Tilda Swinton is one of the best that's doing it. It was amazingly done. I think the acting was very strong. I think Tilda should have won some awards for this film.
Yeah, I mean, she was all right. No, she was my favorite. I felt the worst. Oh, that was my other favorite scene when she got her head sort of decapitated. That's when I was like, oh, I was hoping because she was trying to stop the whole thing, and then Marcos stopped her.
Hey, but she Eddie Murphy this whole fucking film.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was. What is that? What the? Oh my god, what is that show? What is that movie?
Meet the Clumps.
The Clumps.
Yeah.
Gross.
Hey, but
That
hey,
name just sounds
even
gross.
in Coming to America, Eddie Murphy had like 4 roles in that film, 3 or 4 roles.
He was doing it before the Clumps.
But so was I right? So I guess I'm right that you'd like to remake more.
Overall, yes. Yeah, I did. But that's not to say that I won't watch an older Argento again. Like I'm still very curious about some of his other stuff and other Italian, like we talked about Fulci and stuff. I still want to see those old movies. But yeah, in terms of my enjoyment and watchability, like I loved seeing the weird deaths and the razor wire, and it was weird when Sarah's caught in that razor wire mess. She stands up and then just falls, and I'm like, get up. like some of the difficulty in getting through that, but it was fun. It wasn't yeah, I wasn't like glued to the screen out of
Maggots. Did you like the maggots?
the maggots. I was maybe for its time it was like, oh, gross, maggots. But I was like, oh man, I felt bad for the maggots because they had to like pinch them into the comb, and I was like, oh, poor thing. Like this, like put your get in the shoes of these maggots, like.
Yeah.
And then she's stepping
See,
on
that's your Buddhism coming out.
You don't appreciate that. You're gonna in the next life. You're gonna be an Argento movie as one of those maggots under Blanc's feet going across in the attic.
I'm not gonna reach Nirvana.
But it was fun. It was a fun watch. I definitely want to watch more. But I guess I did enjoy the 2018 more. It was still weird. It was still very weird, but the climax was super crazy fun, and the Tilda was great.
This and these two films, so the original is a 10 for me. It's in my top 5 horror films ever made. But the remake I rated at a 8.5. I think the only original and remake that comes close is Maniac for how much I love the original and love the remake. If you average out the score. So, yeah, I think, and they're fun companion pieces. If you watch them back to back, you'll need to have a long night because the remake's 2.5 hours.
The remake was an hour or so longer than the original one.
Yeah.
The old one, gosh, it's not for everybody. That's the thing. So it's hard to give these scores and say like, oh yeah, you should definitely check it out. But everyone's not going to appreciate it. They're like, what the hell is this old ass stuff?
Well, if you're a horror fan, and first of all, you know who MC Escher is?
I know of this name. Yes.
He is an artist, a surrealist artist, which in the original film you'll see a lot of his inspiration, especially in some of the wallpaper, and just how illogical that.
Isn't there a staircase?
That's his most famous.
That's the one I've seen.
The how illogical the building is set up.
Mm-hmm.
It's very MC Escher-esque. A lot of the paintings, the wallpaper. Also, one weird thing, and I don't know if you noticed, the film was he originally wanted to use much younger actresses. Okay. And the production company did not want to do that. They didn't think they could sell this type of shit happening to 10-year-old girls. So, but the doorknobs and the dimensions of the set is made to make the actresses look much smaller. So if you go back and watch it, the doorknobs are set really high up to almost make them look like little girls. And even some of the dialogue, because the original is so asexual, especially for a horror film of that time. There's no nudity, and it's just totally asexual. If you even look at some of the dialogue, you can see younger kids saying it.
Oh, yeah. This is. I was looking up. Because of why was I remembering Benner, and it says like in Argento in his memoir keeps saying Susie Benner, and I remember either reading that in the subs or in the hearing it saying, "Oh, Banner," and he said that's the only place I can pull it up right now. But I was like, why is Susie Banner? Because I remember Banyan in the new one, but in the original I kept hearing Banner in the beginning. Oh, Susie Banner. I don't know.
Might just be the Italian accent.
Okay, yeah, that would be super creepy as little children as there. I would not want to see this. This would be like your Salo movie. And I was like, I don't think I can ever get to Salo. I'm sure that's on my list.
Well, like I said, it's not sexualized. So I mean, there's a lot of horror movies that revolve around 10 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah, they might not be on my list. Be on my list either. I have issues with watching kids and this kind of scary stuff. But I would say the original, I give it a fine. I'll give a decimal for you. I'll give it a 6.5. You just, like you said,
you just lost all the horror fans.
If people don't realize how much I don't care about that, then by now I really don't end up picking all of your favorites. So this is to the audience. It's never really their favorites. It's only for me. But the new one, I wouldn't even go so high. It was still like, it was nice. I liked the script and I liked the surprise stuff. But like I said, like it really wasn't for everybody sort of thing. I wouldn't go high as an 8. I wouldn't drop to a 6. Maybe a 7.5. I liked it. I would tell people, yeah, try it out.
Not as good as the Oldboy remake.
Oh man, Oldboy. If you haven't seen the original Oldboy and you have an issue going back to Oldboy, for some reason you always got to throw Oldboy, and you have an issue with subs or Korean movies or can't access it, I would
Then
say
don't watch film.
Don't then give it a shot. James Brolin does not do a bad job. The script is not terrible. If you don't think of it as a remake, don't look at it as, oh, they copied this, they didn't copy that, they did this horribly. On its own, without thinking where it came from, what it was about, the original, it's not a bad. They did pretty good. I still liked it, but obviously it doesn't compare to the original. The original is far better, and in terms of its acting and its script, like it wasn't afraid to go to different places that the original that the remake still tried, but no, it didn't. It wasn't the same.
I used to like Spike Lee.